Parents who read your teenager's diary, what did you discover that changed your relationship forever? I never meant to read Blair's diary. I was looking for her passport in her desk drawer. We had a family trip planned to Montreal and she'd forgotten where she put it. When I pulled out the bottom drawer, it stuck and everything tumbled out, including a small leather journal that fell open to a page that made my blood run cold. Day 127 since Mom started taking the pills. She thinks I don't notice, but I count everything now. The missing 20s from Dad's wallet, the way she nods off during dinner, how she can't remember conversations we had an hour ago. My hand shook as I read further. Found her passed out on the bathroom floor again today. Had to drag her to bed before Dad got home. I'm so tired of covering for her. Preston keeps asking why I can't hang out after school anymore. I can't tell him I'm scared to leave Mom alone. This couldn't be about me. I didn't have a problem. Sure, I'd been taking pain medication since my back surgery 6 months ago, but my doctor said it was normal. The prescription was legitimate. I flipped back to earlier entries, my heart pounding. Day 89. Mom promised she'd stop after Dad's birthday party, but I found 3 empty bottles hidden in her craft supplies. She was so high at dinner she called me by her sister's name twice. Day 52. Had to lie to Grandma about why Mom couldn't talk on the phone. Told her Mom had laryngitis. Really, she was so out of it she kept forgetting mid-sentence what she was saying. Each page was worse than the last. Detailed accounts of my behavior that I couldn't remember. Times I'd apparently promised to quit, only to start again days later. My 17-year-old daughter had been documenting my addiction with the precision of a researcher. The entries weren't angry, they were heartbroken. Day 200. Found Mom crying in the kitchen at 3 a.m., holding an empty pill bottle. She looked at me and said, "I don't know how to stop." I held her while she sobbed. For 10 minutes, she was my mom again. Then she went upstairs and I heard her rummaging through the medicine cabinet. I sat on her bedroom floor, reading about my life through my daughter's eye, about the mother I'd become without realizing it, about how she'd been taking care of me when I should have been taking care of her. The worst entry was recent. Day 312. Mom drove to pick me up from Sage's house today. She sideswiped Mrs. Patterson's mailbox and didn't even notice. When I got in the car, she was singing along to music that wasn't playing. I made her let me drive home. I'm 16. I don't even have my license yet. My stomach dropped. I remembered that day. I'd thought I was fine. I flipped to the most recent entry, dated just 2 days ago. Day 356. I've been researching boarding schools. Found one in Vermont that has rolling admissions. I love Mom, but I can't watch her destroy herself anymore. And I can't keep lying to Dad. Preston asked me yesterday why I always seem so tired. I almost told him everything. I've saved $2,147 from my job at the bookstore. Enough for the application fee and first month's expenses. If she doesn't get help soon, I'm leaving. I can't live like this anymore. I just want my mom back. That's when I heard the front door open. Blair's voice called up the stairs. "Mom, I'm home." I looked at the journal in my hands, then at the drawer full of evidence I'd accidentally discovered. My daughter had been planning to leave because of me, had been documenting my addiction because she was desperate and scared and alone. She appeared in her doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder, and froze when she saw me sitting on her floor with her diary. The color drained from her face. "Mom," she whispered, and I could hear 356 days of exhaustion in that single word. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Her, caught between fight and flight. Me, holding the evidence of my own destruction. "I was looking for your passport," I said weakly, as if that would somehow justify the invasion of her privacy. She set down her backpack slowly, like I was a wild animal she didn't want to startle. "What did you read?" she asked. Everything. I'd read everything. About the times I'd forgotten to pick her up from school. About the night I'd taken so many pills I'd tried to cook dinner at midnight and left the burner on. About how she'd been doing my laundry because I kept forgetting. And how she'd found my hidden stash of pills in the washing machine. Day 127, I said, my voice barely audible. She closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "Mom, I can explain?" "No," I interrupted. I need to explain. I need to explain how I became someone who didn't notice her daughter was drowning because I was too busy drowning myself." Blair's composure cracked. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "I tried to tell you," she said, "so many times. But you were either too high to understand, or you'd promise to get help, and then I'd find more pills the next day." I thought about all those conversations I couldn't quite remember. All those moments when she'd looked at me with such hope, only to have it crushed again. "The boarding school application," I said. She nodded, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "I found one that specializes in kids from families with addiction issues. They have counselors and support groups, and I thought maybe if I left, you'd finally get help. Or at least Dad would notice something was wrong." The thought of her packing her bags, researching schools for children traumatized by their parents' addictions, planning her escape from the home that should have been her safe space, it broke something inside me. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Known what?" "That I was an addict." She was quiet for a long time, sitting down across from me on her bedroom carpet. "Day 23, she said finally. "When I found you passed out in the garage with the car running, you'd gone out to get groceries and just sat there for 3 hours. The neighbor called Dad at work because our car was just idling in the driveway. I had no memory of this. You told Dad you'd felt sick and came home to rest, but I saw the pill bottle on the passenger seat, empty, and I saw how you couldn't walk straight when he helped you inside. Why didn't you tell him?" Her laugh was bitter. "I tried, but you'd gotten really good at acting normal when he was around. And he travels so much for work? He only saw the good moments. The times when you were present, he thought I was being dramatic. The pieces were falling into place. All those business trips my husband had been taking, how eager he seemed to work late, how relieved he looked when he left for the airport. He knows, doesn't he?" I asked. Blair nodded sadly. "He knows something's wrong, but he doesn't want to deal with it. It's easier for him to just not be here. I felt something shift inside me. Not just shame, but anger. Anger at myself for putting my daughter in this position. Anger at my husband for leaving her to handle it alone. But mostly, a desperate, crushing love for this incredible girl who had been holding our family together with her bare hands. I'm going to get help, I said. She'd heard this before. I could see it in her eyes. Tomorrow, I continued. I'm calling my doctor tomorrow and telling him the truth about how many pills I've been taking. And I'm going to ask him to refer me to a treatment program. Mom, and I'm going to call your father and tell him to come home. Tonight. This family is going to have a real conversation about what's been happening here. Blair looked skeptical, and I couldn't blame her. What about Montreal? She asked. Our family trip. The one I'd been looking forward to, thinking it would be a chance for us to reconnect. We're not going to Montreal until I've been clean for 30 days, I said. And when we do go, it's going to be a celebration, not an escape. She started crying harder then, not the quiet tears from before, but deep, body-shaking sobs that sounded like they'd been building for months. I crawled across the carpet and pulled her into my arms. For the first time in almost a year, she let me. She buried her face in my shoulder and cried like the child she still was, despite everything I'd forced her to handle. I'm so sorry, I whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry I made you grow up so fast. I'm sorry I made you take care of me when that's supposed to be my job. I just wanted my mom back, she sobbed. You've got her, I said, meaning it more than I'd ever meant anything. Starting right now, you've got her back. That night, I called my husband and told him to come home immediately. When he tried to make excuses about work, I put Blair on the phone. Dad, she said, her voice steady despite the tears still drying on her cheeks. Mom read my diary. She knows about the pills. And if you don't come home tonight, I'm going to Vermont. He was on the next flight. The conversation we had when he got home was the hardest of my life. Reading excerpts from Blair's diary out loud, watching my husband's face as he realized how bad things had gotten, how long they'd been bad, how much our daughter had been carrying alone. He cried when I read the entry about her researching boarding schools. He left the room when I read about the night with the car in the garage, but he stayed. When I called my doctor the next morning and admitted I was taking 4 times my prescribed dose, my husband drove me to the appointment. When the doctor recommended an inpatient program, my husband held my hand as I agreed to 30 days of treatment. Blair came with us to the treatment center on the day I checked in. I'm proud of you, she said as we stood in the parking lot. For what? For choosing to get better instead of choosing the pills. The treatment center was nothing like I'd imagined. No white coats or sterile rooms, just ordinary people who'd lost themselves to substances and were trying to find their way back. My roommate was a kindergarten teacher who'd started drinking wine at lunch. Across the hall was a police officer who'd been stealing pills from evidence lockers. The first week was hell. My body rebelled against sobriety with shakes, sweats, and nausea that made me want to die. But worse than the physical symptoms was the mental clarity that came as the fog lifted. I remembered things I'd blocked out, conversations with Blair where she'd begged me to get help, times I'd promised her father I was fine while secretly counting pills in my purse. Group therapy was where the real work began. Dr. Rodriguez, our counselor, had a way of cutting through bullshit that was both terrifying and liberating. Tell me about the last time you disappointed someone you love, she said during my first session. I thought about Blair's face when she found me in her room with her diary. My daughter had to become the parent because I stopped being one, I said. When did that happen? Day 23, I said, remembering Blair's exact words. When she found me passed out in the garage with the car running. The group was quiet. Martinez, the police officer, shifted in his chair. What were you running from? Dr. Rodriguez asked. That's when it all came spilling out. The chronic pain from my back surgery. The way the pills made everything feel manageable. How they'd started as medicine and slowly became my entire coping mechanism. How I'd convinced myself I was functional when really, I was barely existing. Your daughter kept a diary, Dr. Rodriguez noted, reading from my intake file. She documented your addiction for almost a year. How does that make you feel? Like I failed her. She didn't document it to hurt you. She documented it because she was alone and scared and trying to make sense of what was happening to her family. That night, I called Blair. It was visiting hours and I could hear the TV in the background. How are you feeling? She asked. Terrible, I admitted. But clear. For the first time in months, I'm thinking clearly. That's good, right? It's terrifying. I keep remembering things I did that I'd forgotten about or blocked out. She was quiet for a moment. Like what? Like the time I picked you up from Preston's house and couldn't remember how to get home. You had to give me directions to our own house. Day 186, she said softly. You remember the exact day? I remember all of them, Mom. During week 2, we had family therapy sessions. My husband came alone the first time, nervous and defensive. I work 60 hours a week to provide for my family, he said when Dr. Rodriguez asked about his role in my addiction. I can't be expected to babysit my wife. Babysit? Dr. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Is that how you see supporting your spouse through a medical crisis? Medical crisis, he scoffed. She was taking too many pills. It's not like she had cancer. Addiction is a disease, Dr. Rodriguez said calmly, and your daughter was handling it alone while you traveled for work. How do you think that affected her? That's when the walls came down. My husband broke down completely, admitting he'd known something was wrong but hadn't wanted to deal with it. He'd buried himself in work because facing my addiction meant facing his own failure as a husband and father. I kept thinking she'd figure it out, he sobbed. I kept thinking Blair was exaggerating because she's always been dramatic. I didn't want to believe it was as bad as she said. The next session, all 3 of us attended. Blair sat between us, looking smaller than her 17 years. I want to read something, she said, pulling out her diary. From day 89. Dad came home early today and found Mom passed out on the kitchen floor. He carried her upstairs and told me she had the flu. Then he went to his office and made phone calls about work for 3 hours. I could hear him through the door, scheduling another business trip for next week. I cleaned up the pills she'd scattered across the kitchen tiles. 14 of them, I counted. My husband's face crumpled. I thought, he started. You thought it would go away if you ignored it? Blair said. But it got worse, and I had to handle it alone. I'm sorry, he whispered. I don't need your apology, she said. I need you to be present. I need you to actually be my dad instead of someone who just pays the bills and pretends everything is fine. That session changed everything. My husband took family leave from work for the remaining weeks of my treatment. He drove Blair to school every morning and picked her up every afternoon. He cooked dinner and helped with homework and sat with her while she cried about everything she'd been holding inside. By week 3, I was starting to feel human again. The shakes had stopped, and I could think clearly for entire conversations. But the emotional work was just beginning. What are you most afraid of? Dr. Rodriguez asked during individual therapy. Relapsing, I said immediately. What else? That Blair will never trust me again. She's still talking to you. She's still coming to family therapy. She's still living at home instead of running away to Vermont. What does that tell you? That she loves me? That she's choosing to give you a chance to earn back her trust? But trust isn't given. It's built. One action at a time, one day at a time. During week 4, Blair brought more of her diary to family therapy. Not to punish me, but to help me understand what I'd put her through. Day 156. Mom forgot to pick me up from work today. I waited for 2 hours before walking home, found her asleep on the couch with an empty pill bottle in her hand. She woke up when I came in and asked why I was wet. It had been raining for 3 hours. Day 203. Had to lie to my English teacher about why my essay was late. Couldn't tell her I'd been up all night making sure Mom was still breathing. She'd taken so many pills she was barely conscious. I slept on the floor next to her bed. Day 267. Preston asked me to homecoming today. Had to say no because I can't leave Mom alone for an entire evening. Told him I wasn't ready to date yet. He looked so confused. All my friends think I'm weird now. Each entry was like a knife to my heart. My daughter had sacrificed her entire junior year to keep me alive. She'd given up friends, activities, and normal teenage experiences to be my caretaker. I want to make this up to you, I said. You can't, she replied simply. Those experiences are gone. Preston took Sage to homecoming instead. I can't get that back. So what do? You stay clean, and you help me have normal senior year experiences instead of spending it worried about finding you dead. The honesty was brutal, but it was also healing. We were finally talking about the real impact of my addiction instead of pretending everything was fine. My final week in treatment focused on relapse prevention and rebuilding relationships. I learned about triggers and coping mechanisms and the difference between healing and just not using. I also learned that my journey was just beginning. Recovery isn't about going back to who you were before, Dr. Rodriguez explained. It's about becoming someone better, someone who can handle life's challenges without medication. When I left treatment after 30 days, I felt like a different person. Not because the cravings were gone, they weren't, but because I finally had tools to deal with them. The homecoming was both beautiful and awkward. Blair had decorated the house with welcome home signs, but she also watched me carefully for signs of relapse. Every time I went to the bathroom, she'd time how long I was gone. When I reached for the medicine cabinet for ibuprofen, she'd appear in the doorway. Trust is earned, I reminded myself, swallowing my frustration. She had every right to be vigilant. The first real test came 2 weeks later when I threw out my back moving furniture. The pain was excruciating, and my first instinct was to call my doctor for pills. Instead, I called my sponsor from Narcotics Anonymous. Ice and ibuprofen, she said firmly. And if it's not better in 3 days, we'll find you a doctor who specializes in addiction recovery. No controlled substances. I could have lied. I could have gone to urgent care and gotten a prescription without telling anyone. But Blair was watching, and I wasn't going to destroy her trust again for temporary relief. It hurts, I told her that night, lying on the couch with an ice pack. I know, she said, sitting beside me. But you're handling it. Without pills. That simple acknowledgement meant everything. The rebuilding process was slow and often frustrating. There were days when Blair would retreat to her room instead of talking to me. Times when my husband would work late not because he had to, but because he still felt guilty and didn't know how to act around me. Moments when I'd catch myself reaching for the medicine cabinet out of habit. But there were also breakthrough moments. Like the night Blair showed me her college applications and asked for my opinion. Or when my husband surprised me with tickets to a play we'd talked about seeing years ago. Or when I realized I'd gone an entire week without thinking about pills. 3 months into my recovery, Blair came to me with a request that nearly broke my heart. I want to start seeing a therapist, she said. Not because anything's wrong, but because I need to talk to someone about what the last year was like. Of course, I said immediately. Whatever you need. And I want to go alone. No family therapy sessions, just me. It stung, but I understood. She needed space to process her own trauma without worrying about my feelings. Her therapist, Dr. Kim, specialized in children from families affected by addiction. After a few sessions, Blair seemed lighter somehow. Less vigilant, more willing to leave the house without checking on me first. Dr. Kim says I have hypervigilance, she told me one evening. From having to monitor your condition all the time. She's teaching me how to relax. What does that look like? Like going to Preston's house without calling you every hour to make sure you're okay. Like sleeping through the night instead of checking your breathing. I hadn't realized she'd been doing those things. The depth of trauma I'd caused her was staggering. I'm sorry, I said for the 1000th time. I know, she replied. But sorry doesn't fix hypervigilance. Time and therapy do. 6 months into recovery, we finally took that trip to Montreal. Not as an escape or a distraction, but as a celebration. I'd been clean for 180 days, and Blair had started talking about college with excitement instead of dread. The trip was different than I'd imagined. Instead of pretending everything was perfect, We talked openly about the addiction and recovery. Blair told me about the nights she'd stayed awake listening to my breathing. I told her about the shame and fear that had driven me to take more pills instead of asking for help. I kept thinking if I could just get through one more day, I'd figure out how to stop, I admitted as we walked through Old Montreal. But the days just kept adding up, she said. Yeah, until there were 356 of them. 356 days of me documenting your destruction instead of living my own life. We stopped walking and looked at each other. I can't give you those days back, I said. No, she agreed, but you can make sure I don't lose any more. That night, she showed me something she'd written in her diary. Day 547 since mom started taking pills. Day 181 since she stopped. Today we walked around Montreal like a normal mother and daughter. She bought me a sweater I'll actually wear instead of hiding pills in. I'm starting to believe she's really back. The entry made me cry, but they were good tears, healing tears. By the time senior year started, our relationship had transformed into something I'd never experienced. We weren't just mother and daughter. We were two people who'd survived something terrible together and came out stronger. Blair joined the debate team, started dating Preston, finally, and applied to colleges across the country. Each milestone felt like a victory against the addiction that had tried to steal her future. I got into Columbia, she announced one April afternoon, holding her acceptance letter. That's amazing, I said, pulling her into a hug. I'm so proud of you. It's in New York, she said, studying my face. I know, that's 8 hours away. I know. Are you okay with that? I thought about the girl who'd researched boarding schools to escape her addicted mother. Now she was choosing colleges based on academic programs instead of geographic distance from family trauma. I'm more than okay with it, I said. I'm proud that you're choosing your school because you want to go there, not because you need to get away from me. That's when she really broke down. Happy tears this time. I was so scared you'd relapse before I graduated, she admitted. I had this whole plan to defer enrollment if you weren't stable. You don't have to take care of me anymore, I said firmly. That's not your job. It never should have been. I know, but old habits die hard. Graduation day was everything I'd hoped for and more. Blair walked across that stage as salutatorian, and I watched from the audience with pride instead of through a pill-induced haze. After the ceremony, she found me in the crowd. You made it, she said, hugging me tight. We made it, I corrected. That summer before college, we had the most normal mother-daughter relationship of our entire lives. We went shopping for dorm supplies, argued about curfews, and had long conversations about everything and nothing. She started leaving the house without checking on me first. I started making decisions without calculating how many pills I had left. 1 year into recovery, we attended a family addiction support group together. Other parents and children shared their stories of destruction and healing. When it was our turn, Blair spoke first. My mom's addiction taught me that love isn't enough, she said. You can love someone completely and still lose them to drugs. But recovery taught me that love can be enough if it's combined with action and honesty. When she finished, I stood up. My daughter saved my life by documenting my destruction, I said. She turned her diary into evidence that addiction was destroying our family. Reading her words forced me to see myself through her eyes. And what I saw horrified me enough to get help. After the meeting, a mother approached us. Her teenage son had been covering for her drinking for 2 years. How did you find the courage to get help? She asked. Blair and I looked at each other. She found my diary, I said. But really, she'd been trying to help me find that courage for months. I just wasn't ready to see it. What made you ready? Realizing that my daughter was planning to leave home to save herself from my addiction. That's when I understood I had a choice. Lose her forever or fight for recovery. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. My son applied to colleges on the opposite coast, she said quietly. Then you already know what choice you need to make, Blair said gently. 2 months later, that woman checked into the same treatment center where I'd gotten clean. Her son called me to thank us for sharing our story. Mom's been sober for 30 days, he said. For the first time in 2 years, I'm not afraid to come home from school. That call reminded me why Blair had kept that diary in the first place. Not to document my failure, but to create a record that might eventually lead to healing. As Blair prepared to leave for Columbia, she made me a promise. I'm not leaving because I don't trust you, she said. I'm leaving because I do trust you. I trust that you'll stay clean without me watching over you. What if I don't? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. Then you'll call Dr. Rodriguez or your sponsor or me and you'll get help before you take the first pill. Because now you know what you have to lose. She was right. Recovery had taught me that relapse didn't have to mean destruction. It could mean reaching out for help before falling all the way down. The day I dropped her off at college, we both cried. But they were different tears than the ones we'd shed in her bedroom that day I found her diary. These were tears of pride and hope and excitement for the future. Thank you, I said as we hugged goodbye. For what? For not giving up on me, for keeping that diary, for forcing me to see the truth. Thank you for reading it, she said, even though it was an invasion of privacy. Best invasion ever. That night, I called my husband from the hotel room. She settled in, I reported. Her roommate seems nice. The dorm is exactly what she wanted. How are you? He asked. Proud, sad, but mostly grateful. Grateful? That she's leaving for the right reasons. That we have a relationship worth maintaining across 800 miles. That I'm clean and present and able to miss her instead of being too high to notice she's gone. 3 years later, Blair graduated from Columbia with a degree in social work. Her thesis project was about children who become caregivers in families affected by addiction. She'd interviewed dozens of teenagers who'd had experiences similar to hers. I want to help kids who are where I was, she told me. Kids who are documenting their parents' destruction because they don't know how else to cope. She's working at a family counseling center now, running support groups for teenagers from addicted families. Sometimes she shares excerpts from her own diary to help them understand they're not alone. Last month, she called me with news. I'm writing a book, she said, about my experience as a child of an addicted parent, about how documentation became my survival mechanism. What are you going to call it? Counting days. A Daughter's Diary of Addiction and Recovery. Are you going to include my story too? Only if you want me to. It's your story to tell or not tell. I thought about all the parents I'd met in support groups, all the families destroyed by addiction, all the children who were currently hiding in their rooms, documenting their parents' destruction in diaries and journals and notes on their phones. Include it, I said. If our story helps one family get into recovery, it's worth sharing. The book comes out next month. Blair sent me an advance copy, and reading it was both heartbreaking and healing. She'd included dozens of her diary entries alongside her reflections on what it was like to be 17 and responsible for keeping her mother alive. In the acknowledgments, she wrote, "To my mother, who taught me that love means getting help when you need it, and that recovery is possible, no matter how far you've fallen. Thank you for reading my diary and choosing to fight for our family. Today marks 5 years since I found that diary. 5 years since my daughter's words forced me to confront the truth about my addiction. I've been clean for 1,145 days, and our relationship is stronger than ever. Blair is engaged now to a wonderful man who knows our entire story. She's planning a wedding for next spring, and she's asked me to be her matron of honor. Are you sure?" I asked when she told me. "After everything I put you through, especially because of everything we went through," she said. "You're not the mother who was addicted to pills. You're the mother who fought her way back to me." The diary still sits on my nightstand, not as a reminder of my failure, but as a testament to my daughter's strength and the power of truth to transform lives. Sometimes people ask me what I would tell parents who are struggling with addiction. Your children are watching, I tell them. They're documenting your behavior whether you know it or not. They're counting days and hiding pills and lying to protect you. And they're planning their escape routes because they're afraid they're going to lose you forever. What if they've already given up on me? Then you document your own recovery. Day by day, choice by choice, you show them that change is possible. Because love isn't enough to overcome addiction, but love combined with action can overcome anything. Last week, Blair started a new diary. Not to document destruction, but to record the good things in her life. Wedding planning and career goals and dreams for the future. She showed me the first entry. Day 1 of documenting joy instead of trauma. Today, Mom and I went dress shopping for my wedding. She remembered every detail about what I wanted and helped me find the perfect dress. She's been clean for 1,638 days, and I've stopped counting. Not because I don't care, but because I finally trust that she's not going anywhere. Reading those words, I understood what recovery really means. It's not just about stopping the destructive behavior. It's about rebuilding trust so completely that the people you love stop counting the days and start believing in the years ahead. My daughter saved my life by refusing to pretend everything was fine, by documenting the truth in her diary and forcing me to see myself through her eyes, by loving me enough to plan her escape and strong enough to stay when I chose recovery. The relationship I have with her now is nothing like what it was before the pills, and nothing like what it was during them. It's deeper, more honest, and built on a foundation of mutual respect and hard-won trust. She didn't just survive my addiction, she transformed it into purpose, helping other families find their way out of the darkness. And I didn't just survive recovery, I used it to become the mother she deserved all along. Sometimes the most invasive act of love, reading your child's diary, becomes the most healing. Because the truth, no matter how painful, is always the first step toward freedom.